Alright, welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and the Tamiya M41 Walker Bulldog weathering project for my beginner series. So, here's where I am now. I've got the detail stuff painted. Tools, the spare track, the exhaust. I painted the periscopes. It's really kind of tough to see, but I used a clearish green. I used green wash to paint that to make it a little bit different. And I'm going to put some clear gloss on it just to make it pop out a little bit. I painted the straps on the fuel cans. So that's where I am with that. So the next thing I want to do is I want to do a little bit more on this weathering here. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to use my light dirt and I'm going to apply it to the spare track. And the reason I'm using the light dirt is because I want it to look like, if you look at photos, oftentimes on tracks, they kind of have like a rusty color down deep, but then the upper part of it is more of like a powdery tan beige color. It's not really the orange that you sometimes see used for rust. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to apply it on here, and then whenever I wipe it off, it'll leave it all in the nooks and crannies and stuff and look a little bit better, I think. And then I may use some rust wash on top of that. I'll just kind of experiment with it and see. I'm also going to put some rust wash on the exhaust, because I don't want those to be as rough as some of my other stuff, because being a little bit more modern vehicle, and this is just pure supposition on my part, I have no basis for I have no proof of this. It's just my own supposition that, you know, using a little bit more modern materials, it wouldn't be quite so crusty and chunky rust. That's my own thing, and this is more of a garrison type vehicle anyway, so it's not out in the field getting beat to death. An example would be, look at the exhaust on your car. Your exhaust, your catalytic converter, all that type of stuff on your car gets super hot, but you don't see that really rusty, nasty, chunky, rough finish like you do on, say, a much older car that hasn't had its exhaust replaced. So kind of what I'm saying is I don't want to overdo it, and I think sometimes it's easy to overdo using artistic license to get some texture and stuff like that going. So I'm not saying that that is wrong, and I'm not saying that it's not like that. It's just that's the thought process behind this vehicle here. So I'm going to, I made sure my wash is thoroughly mixed, and then I'll just put it on here like that. And what I love about this stuff is the fact that when you put it on, it's like almost clear. You can't even see that you put it on here, but by the time it dries, it looks really good. And I know some of you may get tired of hearing me talk about the clay washes, but you know what? They work really well. I really like the clay washes and what they do. And, you know, as a lot of people like to point out, whenever they make statements like that about products they really like, I have no affiliation with Ultimate Modeling Products at all. But I think that these clay washes are really good. Okay, that's my opinion. Other people may not like them at all, but I think if you try them, you'll find that you like them. So anyway, I'm putting that on there. So we'll see it's already starting to dry up. So I think it's going to look pretty good. So we got that. The exhaust, I'll let that dry up for a few minutes. Clean my brush. So while that is drying, I'm going to discuss a little bit about what I'm going to do next as far as the rest of the vehicle. So what I want to do first is on the, I'm going to start with the turret. I'm going to use, and again, this is, I didn't come up with this. It's not my idea. I've gotten it somewhere else. I don't even know who came up with this kind of stuff, you know, but it's not original. So don't take it that way that I'm trying to take credit for something that is not mine. I am going to do some streaking effects on the vehicle, like streaks coming down the vehicle like from rain, stuff like that. And what I'm going to use is the oil paints again, and what I'll be doing with that is I will be applying it. I'll be using my a little bit better brushes here and just putting dots of the oil paints, and then just using a brush, you know, I'll dot it on there, and then using a brush I will just be streaking it downwards, so it'll be real faint, but you will see it, and it will give it a streaked effect, you know, like water and other fluids have, you know, run down the side. So while this part is still drying, I'm gonna get my oil paints and everything ready so I can start working on that, and I'll demonstrate how I'm gonna do that. Alright, so here's what I'm doing. Taking a brush, instead of a toothpick, I'm applying very small little dots of the white oil paint. Okay, and then I'm also putting in just a very tiny amount of the yellow. You gotta be careful with the yellow ochre because it can be kind of overpowering. Just little tiny, I mean, it doesn't take much at all. Like that. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of the, which one is that? Is that burnt umber? Yeah, burnt umber. And where there's, you know, fittings, handles, any extra attachment type stuff, putting a very small amount just to kind of break up the color a little bit. And then using my wide flat brush, I'm getting some thinner on it, and I'm basically doing the same thing I did with the rest of it, but this one I'm being more directional, in this case streaking downwards. So I've got most of the thinner out of the brush, and then just take it and just streak it downwards like that, and just do it until you don't have any of the solid color anymore, and it's kind of blended in. Like that. And then whenever see, I don't know, let's see, that just little tiny bit of brown, you get a nice little bit of extra streaking there. So that's what I did. This side hasn't been done yet. This side has, as well as the turret. So I did the same method. There's a little bit of brown right there, you know, just some streakiness to get it to break up the solid color and show flow of rainwater. And as it dries, it's really gonna come out a lot more. So I'm going to do this side here. Same thing, just a little bit here and there. It's not really going to mess up the coat you've already put down of the scrubbed on stuff, but it's just going to kind of enhance it and make it look like water. Moisture has flowed down the vehicle on the sides due to gravity. Okay, same thing, taking the brush, it's still damp, so there's no need to dampen it anymore, and then just carefully pull it down, and it'll give it a nice streaky look. And if you look, if you think you overdid it or you don't like it, then just take your thinner and wipe it off. You can get it on the brush, you can thin it out, you can add a little bit more paint if you want. Get some nice variation of color going on here. Breaks up the monotony. And if you have any that gets up on the edge, just use your brush to get rid of it. I had to do a little bit here because this part hadn't been done yet. A little bit much, so I'm going to scrub most of that off. Put some of it on the top here, almost like dry brushing. That'll actually come later. So there you go. The front's been done. All of the vertical surfaces and the sloping surfaces have been done. I'm going to do a little bit along this edge here. And again, you want to do it in a way that gravity would make it happen. You gotta be careful because this is a smaller area here, and you definitely don't want to have too much paint. Because it'll be harder to get rid of it there. Okay, and since this is a curved surface, curved that way as well as down, you're going to want to make sure you don't just streak it all that way. Streak it as it would flow down the surface if it were the real deal and water was really rolling off of it. Getting it on the bottom, just blend it in real nicely. It's going to be a subtle effect in most places, but it's gonna really make it look a little bit more realistic. Okay. So, I think that pretty much does it for that. I'm going to do the front of the mantlet here and do some more streaking up there, but now that you know what it looks like, I will do that off camera. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do here is do a bit of dry brushing. And dry brushing is, for those who don't know, is a pretty old technique, and sometimes it's kind of frowned upon by some people as archaic or, you know, just old-fashioned, whatever, but it's still effective and it's somewhat easy. And it basically boils down to, and I've demonstrated in other videos as well, but take a brush, and I prefer a rounded brush. I think they call them a filigree. There's different sizes. This one's not, you know, the best quality. This one's a little bit better quality here, but for these purposes right now, I'm going to use this one. and you just take a a light dusty color, which in this case I'm using Buff by Vallejo. It's a Vallejo model color paint, and that particular one came in a weathering set, but you can also buy it in the regular size bottle. But any color paint like that will work, even Tamiya, an appropriate color like Buff or something like that. But the thing you want to do is get some of the paint on your brush and then just get pretty much all of it off of the brush, because you just want to very lightly hit the highlights. Now I've already hit this, so I'm going to show you on all these details here what it'll look like just by using this technique. And all you do is just lightly brush across, focusing on the raised detail. Get a little bit more paint here, and it'll really make it, after doing your wash and all the other weathering you've done, it will really give you some contrast between the dark and the highlighted, dry brushed parts. See, these are already starting to stand out way more than what they were before. So it just gives your model a little bit more dimension, and really makes the details stand out. See all these hinge detail and these handles, the levers on the fuel filler caps. Okay, so you can see how this looks right now. And just by dry brushing that, it's going to stick and cling to all that raised detail and really make it, as they say, pop. Okay, so you're just basically scrubbing a highlighted color on there. And there's other ways of getting kind of the same effect, but this way I find fairly easy, and it gives you a lot of control over what you're doing. And you'll find that it really, if you get your brush nice and dry, it'll really only get to the highlight stuff and won't smear or cover up the rest of the weathering you've already done. It's not meant to really replicate dust, it's just meant to highlight the detail. As I've shown that there's other ways to actually do the dust. So as you can see, it's making that stuff kind of, really stick out, all that raised detail. So let's get down into here. And you kind of, whenever you have like raised rib detail like this, you want to hit it crossways so it catches the edges. You don't want to do it this way because it'll end up smearing, and then you might get, some smearing stuff going on the parts you don't want highlighted. And it's subtle, and you can do as much or as little as you want to get the effect you want. Some details that kind of get lost are brought back out just by doing this. This section right here should really picked out that detail and really made it stand out a lot more. Again, with that wash that we put down very early on, it helps give it really good contrast. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do some more on that, do the turret, and then come back. Alright, so dry brushing is complete now. And before I end this video, so I can go on to the next parts, just some quick notes on dry brushing. Things to keep in mind. Any mistakes that you have made, like say if you didn't cut a sprue gate off or smooth it or sand it out well enough, it is going to be highlighted by dry brushing. Same if you were dry brushing an aircraft for some reason, and you had a seam line somewhere, like a fuselage seam that wasn't prepared properly, it's going to highlight that. Also, if you use decals, especially some of the Tamiya decals and Academy, some of these brands that are like really thick, when you dry brush, it's going to highlight the carrier film around. That's why I chose to use dry transfers on this vehicle, because it doesn't leave, there's no film around the edge like a decal. So that's something else to consider. And then finally, the paint that you use, well, two more things. The paint that you use, Vallejo model color is generally pretty thick, and whenever I am painting something with a brush, I thin it. Well, for dry brushing, you don't want to thin it. The thicker the paint, the better, because it won't streak. If the paint is too thin, if you were to thin this or use, say, model Air instead, you run the risk of streaking, putting streaks on your model, but in a way that's not controlled, like the oil streaks that we did here. So thick paint is a good thing. Also, last thing is, if you have to clean your brush for some reason, whatever you do, don't use the brush until you have thoroughly let it thoroughly dry, because if it's got any moisture in it at all, you're gonna have the same thing. You're gonna get streaking. Even no matter how much of the paint you get off, you're gonna get some streaking. So make sure your brush is really dry, or just use a different brush. If you have to clean up and go eat dinner or go put away the dishes or something like that, then and you clean your brush, when you come back, use a dry brush. And I think that is pretty much it. So the next video should be the final bit of weathering before the model is complete. So we're going to stop with this right now, and as always, thanks for joining me on Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and the M41 Walker Bulldog weathering project for the beginner series, and I will see you all next time.